Hi, everyone. How's it going? I'm here with Mark Johnston, our head marriage coach, and I'm Heather Choate, our mindset coach. And Mark and I are just going to be really transparent. We're both really tired today, but we wanted to show it for you both. You know, Mark's got a new baby from home. I got sick this week, so I hope that you are more well rested than us. So we may keep it a little bit shorter today just for that reason, but we're excited to meet with you. So Mark, our topic for today is the biggest mistake to avoid when trying to reconnect with your spouse. And we're only going to talk about one of the major biggest mistakes that we see because it's a very, very common one. So do you have that question there, Mark? Do you have that available to pull up real quick?
Yeah, just give me 1 second here. Let me get back to that. Yes, the question was, I'm interested in reconnecting with my spouse because I'm at a loss as to what to do, and what I've been doing doesn't seem to be working. My biggest problem is saying something that pushes her away more. And you know what? That same sentiment, the same thing I hear all the time. One spouse is pulling away, and the other one who actually wants to work on things, they'll tell us it doesn't seem like anything's working. Nothing's working, no matter what I do. And the biggest reason for this is because when someone is starting to consider some other options, all the rules in the relationship change. What previously would have been seen as something very romantic and connecting, it kind of gets flipped over on its head, and those sort of gestures are really just infuriating and tend to push the other person away. So as an example, I remember talking with someone and they said, yeah, my wife told me that they wanted a divorce. And the next day I brought home some flowers and she got really upset about that. And it's just, he was perplexed. He had no idea why that was such an upsetting thing. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest mistake to avoid is this sense of neediness, this cleanness, this idea that you absolutely need to fix things right away. Because what ends up happening is all of these attempts will surely push the partner who's leaning out of the relationship. It'll push them further away. It'll create more disconnection. And that might not make sense right away, but I want to explain it a little bit, because when I'm looking at situations like this, for me personally, I want to know how things work, and I want to know why things are a certain way. I don't want to just hear, okay, well that's the way you do it, and that's it. You need to do it because. But right here, what's going on in the background is, we have someone who very likely has been thinking about this problem for a long time. They've probably been stewing on this idea to leave or to disconnect for very likely for months, if not years. And so now they've made a decision, and they tell you this decision. And what do is you say, no, that's not the right thing to do. Well, come back. Let's work on this. If we have to look at it, the underlying message here, because that's always important, knowing exactly what you're communicating. The underlying message here is what you just said wasn't important. How you're feeling isn't important. And it might not seem like that because you're doing all these nice things, but that's exactly what I hear from these people, is they feel like, okay, he or she, they're not listening. They're not considering my needs. And I can keep going, Heather. I don't know if you, I feel like I'm talking a bunch here. Do you have anything to add there? I mean,
no, you're
okay.
Mark's on the wall. And you guys appreciate this. We always love seeing the thumbs up or any questions that you have. Sometimes Mark and we get going, and we're so used to talking about this that we get on a roll, and that's awesome. But sometimes if you need to slow down and apply something a little bit more or understand something a little bit better, then always just go ahead and leave us a comment.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it is Mark, that the rules, they do change. And what's not taught or not understood, even by a lot of marriage professionals, is that the rules have changed. I'm going to go into an example with that a little bit later, but I wanted you to keep going. So, Mark,
sure. No, I like that idea, that thought there, because even a lot of other professionals don't even realize this. Because, very frequently, by the time someone comes and talks to us, they'll say, okay, we tried counseling, and all they tried to do is they tried to get us to like go out on dates more, or they tried to get us to communicate better. And that still isn't really addressing the problem. I'm thinking about one person in particular that I'm working with. He and his wife are still seeing a counselor together, and I'm just working with this individual. And that counselor is trying to get him to just get out for coffee. And the thing is that's great. That's a good way to build connection, but it's not really addressing the problem, the deeper issues. And so all these little attempts at building connection or pulling the other person back in is just going to backfire. Now, like I said, I was going to say I want to explain really what's going on here. Now, like I said, the primary thing here is the underlying message that their concerns, their problems aren't really considered, aren't being addressed. If we think about this, the person who is leaning out of the relationship is really they're hurt. They've been hurt for some time, and the prospect of working on their relationship, the idea of that is, in their mind, it's putting them at risk again for more hurt. And until you can wrap your head around just how hurt this person is and just how risky it is for them to rejoin the relationship, it's going to be really hard to pull them back in whatsoever, because everything is going to be about all the bad things that have happened, all the bad things that you've done, all the hurt that they've experienced. And that really needs to be addressed first before you talk about what they need to do to change, or what they need to do differently, or how they should come back in for the kids, or for whatever reason. Yeah.
Awesome. So conversely, okay, I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of the mindset stuff that is usually going on in this kind of situation. And that is with the person, your spouse, is pulling away from you, and some of that internal emotional trauma that's going on that is causing some of these behaviors that's leading to the biggest mistake. Okay. And I'm going to put in a forward mantra here for you in just a minute that's going to make it really easy for you to understand what the biggest mistake actually is. So when your spouse is pulling away from you, there's almost nothing more terrifying or painful than having someone you love reject you, and someone that you love wanting to leave you and not communicate with you or connect with you whatsoever. So what that does, what we see on the internal mindset, is that creates a lot of fear, panic even sometimes. And what happens when we get into a fear panic state is that we react in a kind of an animalistic behavior. And how that kind of manifests is that we try to control the person even more. We want to demand that they work on the relationship with us. And we make all of these like dramatic attempts to try to pull them back in. And sometimes we think those are even the right things to do because maybe they worked earlier in the relationship, like bringing the flowers kind of thing. That's normally an acceptable behavior in a relationship. However, in this case, like Mark mentioned, it's going to backfire. So many times when we talk to people, and we talk to multiple people every single day about this exact issue, they're saying, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Everything I seem to do is backfiring. Nothing seems to be working. No matter how hard I try, it just seems to be pushing them further away. And what that person then, it becomes a cycle of clenching, like clench mode, where you're holding on really tight to this person. And when you feel like you're being held on really tight by someone else, it makes you want to get away. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel secure because of that kind of desperate energy. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she loves bunnies, like to the point where she would literally strangle the thing to death because she wants it so badly. And so that's a little bit what the choke mode is like, right? Is that you want it so much that you're actually choking the life out of it. And all these things you think are going to connect you are actually pushing them further away. So, dun, 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 drum roll, our forward mantra, I'm going to post it here. Oh, no, that's not it. All this lead up to it, and then I copied the wrong thing. That's all right. But it's stop demanding that they stay. Stop demanding they stay. Because when you're demanding that they stay, that is only going to push them further away. So the number one biggest mistake you can make in reconnecting with your spouse is demanding that they work on the relationship with you. Okay, so Mark, take it from there. Why is that the biggest mistake that you can make when you're trying to reconnect with your spouse? I'll type it in here so everyone gets it.
No, it's a huge mistake because, I'm going to circle around to back what I was saying before. What is the underlying message here? When you hold on there, when you cling on, when you demand that they stay, whose needs are being focused on right there? It's absolutely your own. And people get a sense of that. If you're saying, look, I need you in my life, I can't live without you, please stay. Those are all, that entire focus is on yourself. And so that person that's leaning out of the relationship, they're saying, okay, well, why would I stay? You're not considering me. You want me to stay for yourself, for what I can do for you. And that's not really a basis for healing. It's not really a basis for reconciliation, or even a basis for a healthy relationship if both partners are focused in on their own needs. It takes a lot of selfless sacrifice. It takes a lot of focus in on the other person to have a healthy relationship, but also especially to reconcile and to heal.
Absolutely. So Mark, something that we've also heard from people when we present this, and this is a very different, unconventional way of looking at things, because oftentimes people want to start hashing out the problems immediately and going on dates and doing all these other things that we talked about. But what is different about this is that we are shifting out of that selfish mode. But something that we hear when we present this, and some of you may be thinking this yourself, is that, but don't I have a right to? Okay, we've heard this before. Like someone says, don't I have a right? They married me. They made a vow. Don't I have a right to demand that they work on this with me? Doesn't that mean anything? So that's something that we often hear, and maybe some of you are understanding where we're coming from. Right,
I love that statement, because it sounds like it makes sense, but in reality, when you dig down a little bit deeper, I'm going to show you why it doesn't. Now, I'm going to take that same statement and let's apply it to a brand new relationship. Someone that you just started dating, and you have some sort of argument, and then there's some demands. We have to work on this. You have to do this, you have to do that. You have to make these changes. In a new relationship, that would seem a little bit off, right? And you telling them that they have to stay with you. Here's the thing, is just like in a new relationship, even though you get married, people don't magically transform into someone new. I mean, yes, there's differences, there's more commitment, but in many ways, people enjoy being treated like an individual, even after they're married. So, I mean, in this case of, a dating situation, the person who's the person who's maybe leaning out, or there's demands on them, they're probably going to split as soon as there's too much pressure. Now with marriage, there's going to be a little bit more. There's going to be more binding the relationship together, but still that there's going to be a little bit of resentment. Like, okay, what about me? You're making demands on me, and shouldn't I have some autonomy here? And really, if you're going to go in a positive direction, demands aren't just. It's not the way to go. There's ways of addressing problems and getting cooperation going and, meeting each other's needs while still respecting the autonomy, the individuality of your partner or of each other.
You got into the next part. I was just going to ask you that. So if we know what not to do, which is to demand that they work on the marriage with us, then what does that leave us with? What should we do? And you already started to answer that. So
yeah.
Let's get a little bit deeper there into that. So if we are to, let me just recap that. So we're not demanding that they work on the relationship. What do we do? What is the next step then?
That's a really good question, and it's going to be complicated based on the situation. But I can make some generalities. I can make some assumptions. So if someone is really pulling away, I'm going to make an assumption that there's a lot of unease in the relationship, that there's a lot of disconnection in the relationship. And I don't just mean disconnection as in like you don't spend time together or you don't have fun together, but there's other ways of being disconnected. I know couples who can have fun together, but they can't go deeper on any other subject. But anyways, there's certain things missing that I can assume are missing in this sort of situation. And so you have to solve problems in order. If you try solving things like trying to pull them back into the relationship before they're ready, it's going to backfire. And so you need to start off with some more basic steps. You need to start off with just making things comfortable between you and your spouse. If there's a lot of tension in the air between the two of you, if there's a lot of unease, why would they even consider coming back? They're leaving because they're trying to avoid pain. And if there's that pain, that uneasiness there's not really going to be any reason to work on the situation. After you can build up some comfort and make it easier to be around each other, then you need to start building up some connection. And I don't just mean getting out on dates, because that's a symptom of being connected. You want to get out on dates if you feel connection, but making things more intimate, connecting at a deeper level, opening up and being vulnerable a little bit. Yes, it does involve having fun, but at this point, it's really about making sure that each of your interactions are you're coming away from them having a positive impression of them, and that your partner is doing the same. It's only at that point that I think that you can start developing some feelings for each other. And after that, after all those steps, and certainly those are more complicated than what I'm explaining, but after all those steps is when you can nail down some commitment. Actually asking for the person to work on things. And if you try it beforehand, you're going to fail.
Bottom line, that's it. Right. So it's remembering that to solve problems in order. So if anyone has any questions real quick, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Or you can always shoot us a message personally to Mark or myself. We also have a free training on this that goes a little bit deeper, because like Mark said, there's a lot to this. And this is kind of the tip of the iceberg stuff. But it's really important that you understand that demanding that they work on the relationship, doing all of these really controlling behaviors out of fear, is only going to push them further away. So we really want to avoid that mistake. So if you're interested in that free training, it's called the 5 Shifts to Save Your Marriage, even if your spouse is checked out. And Mark and I go a little bit deeper into those 5 different principles that you really need to have. And as always, you're always welcome to get on a free 1-hour session with Mark here, and he can go deep dive into your relationship, into your specific situation, give you clarity on why your spouse might be, pulling away, and exactly what the next best steps are to take. So I don't see any comments or questions here today. Maybe we're all a little sleepy. Maybe it's nap time. But we appreciate you, Mark, and thank you for sharing this with us today. Any final comments?
No, you know what? I think we're good. You can tell that we really just fly by the seat of our pants here on these live streams.
We do. We like to be present and available to the incredible members of this group. So as always, we are here for you and we support you. You're not alone. I know that oftentimes in this situation, it's very scary. It's very frightening, and you can feel very much isolated or alone. You're not alone, and there is possibility. You absolutely can save your marriage by being the first one to start working on it. It's a beautiful thing that we're able